series dedicated to making over every single townie in The Sims 4, showing you all of their outfits, and then kind of just like rounding up the headcanons I have for them, what I actually saw when I was designing them, why I made them in that way. And whilst I was making one of those videos, I was like, you know what? I've done an awful lot of tier rankings over the years. I mean, we even got to the point where we were tier ranking socks. I've also ranked Sims 4 packs based on the townies that it was shipped with and whether or not I thought it was a good kind of pack for the townies that came with it. But I've actually never sat down and done a tier ranking of all of the families. I've ranked individual townies, but I kind of wanted to go through every single family in this game and kind of just give you my opinion on them. So sit back, relax, we are gonna get to know some townies today. If you didn't already have an interest in them before now, hopefully you're gonna have an interest in them after this video. I also haven't really decided on what criteria I'm gonna base these on. I think obviously like how iconic they are, the relationships that they have with each other, the relationships that they have with other Sims. I am also gonna have my own personal biases of how these townies actually and families like interact with my families. Starting off, of course, with the Goths. Probably one of the, if not the most iconic household that we have in The Sims. Not just The Sims 4, they've been a staple of every single game. They have lore, they have generations behind them, they are old money. I absolutely love the Goths, and whilst it might be the basic answer, and also some of you might disagree with this, I know a lot of people don't like that The Sims 4 is like an alternate timeline to the rest of The Sims. I can't put the Goth family anywhere other than Motherlode. Next up, we have the Bjergsons, which this one is difficult because I really think the parents are extremely boring, but I'm actually gonna put them in Grim Reaper. I think they're slightly forgettable, especially out of all the Windenburg townies. They got introduced in Get Together, and I just think there are so many more iconic households and families in Windenburg. Maybe I should sort these into packs. So for every single family, I'm not like, these were in this pack. So next up, we have the BFF household. Now, these lot actually hold a very special place in my heart. You lot know how much I love My Sims and have loved My Sims since I was younger, when I was playing it on the Wii. And all three of these Sims are based on My Sims. I do think they had the Sims 4 curse and they looked nothing like their My Sims, but that also was kind of because of the fact that it was base game, and base game clothing and base game hairs didn't honestly even really feel fashionable for 2014 when this game came out. They felt very like 2010s coded. However, I love these three, a throuple in my mind. I also love that you can kind of come up with like a backstory for them, even though they are based on My Sims, and clearly they all still have like the hobbies. Summer was like the cheerleader, so she's quite sporty. I honestly can't even remember Liberty actually within My Sims all that well, but I feel like she was just like very like jolly, and then he was on the more like tech side of things and had to start a business that took off really well, and he like made his millions. I hate to say it, but I do think Travis would be into Bitcoin these days. They're not quite as iconic, but I do absolutely adore them, so they're going into Rosebud. The Spencer Kim Lewis. Now, I think the base game townies in particular do hold a special place in my heart. Yes, it might just be because of nostalgia reasons. I know, how can I be nostalgic for 2014? Most of you are probably sat there saying, girl, how can you even be nostalgic for the Sims 4 like base game when it first came out? And trust me, it was a rough time, but these Sims helped me get through it. My Sims would not be fed without Vivian. She was always like, in the first 4 years of playing this game, the first one to come with like the welcome wagon. She would always bring the fruitcake, and even though I am a hater of fruitcake, I love them, so they're going into Rosebud. I fear so many of you are gonna be so mad at me for doing this, but I feel like I have to put the pancakes above the Goths I know, but if we're ranking purely based on the Sims 4 townies, like if we take the legacy and like everything that came before the Goths, I think the pancakes go down in history as like one of my favorite townies. I love that they actually have like a jumping off point. Again, if their relationships were like a little bit better and they actually like knew other Sims, I think this would be absolutely incredible. They kind of feel like a Sims 2 household in my mind. Like, even though their relationships aren't great and there isn't like sentiments and there isn't like all of these things in the base game, I feel like if you go to play the pancakes, there's actually a jumping off point. You know, they have their own separate bedrooms, they're not happy in their marriage, and it really feels like there's so many different scenarios that you can play with them, and I personally think that that's what a townie family should be, reminiscent of The Sims 2, and I can't fault them for it. The Landgrabs, again, I just think they're clearly an iconic family, incredibly like fun to play with. Once again, like very different Sims in a marriage, and I just kind of love that setup of a household, and I'm sure my ranking will actually represent that. I honestly couldn't give a crap about Malcolm. I'm gonna be so for real, he's not my favorite Sim. I, however, don't think the Landgrabs are quite as iconic as the Goths, so they are going to go at the top of Rosebud for me. However, Johnny Zest, my angel, my boy, he can do no wrong in my eyes. The fact that he has been kicked out of the household, hate that he doesn't have any relationship whatsoever to the Landgrabs, one of the biggest downfalls of the Sims 4 base game. Obviously, now that we have more packs, especially packs that affect like sentiments and stuff like that, you can definitely like play around with his lore, but that shouldn't be on the player to do that. It should just be represented from the get-go. Little tidbit about this household, they're actually based on the New Girl like loft. They're based on the characters from New Girl. So Mitchell is based off Nick, JJ is based off Schmidt, and then we have Winston and Gavin, and Zoe Patel is obviously Zoe Deschanel, Zoe Patel. Why did I call him JJ? But Jay Huntington, I think, is probably the most iconic from this household, but that's just because, you know, sometimes he's an easy fling, and, you know, he's everybody's go-to for 100 Baby Challenge, Black Widow Challenge, the list goes on. However, I do think they are slightly forgettable. I don't hate their like makeup though. I wish that there was maybe a little bit more drama between them, but they're going into Crumple Bottom. The Calientes, Dina, Nina, Don Lothario. I think they stand the test of time of like a townie family that, again, like the pancakes, you can hop in and you can like play out so many different scenarios, and I love that for them. So they're actually gonna go just below the Goths, and I would say more fun in my opinion to play than the Goths, because they have more jumping off room and kind of your own stories to tell with them. Moving on to some of my very favorite townies within the game, I thought genuinely that like the Windenburg townies and the like get together townies were my favorite, but I would say that the city living ones are actually my favorite, with Windenburg being a very, very close second. We have Jasminda and Aaron Beda. I do really, really like that Jasminda is one of the only Sims, maybe the only Sim, who is actually pregnant, like pre-programmed to be pregnant. So they will have a baby in your game no matter what, unless you go into their household and like MCC that pregnancy out of there. They will always have a child at some point in your gameplay, and I love that. They are slightly forgettable though, so I am going to put them at the bottom of Rosebud. I don't think they are forgettable enough to be in Crumple Bottom, which this, by the way, is just kind of like your average, you know, they're townies. You like seeing them out and about, but they're not really like someone that you would go out of your way to interact with. Grim Reaper is like, if I saw you walking down the street, maybe I would say hello to you, but I would try and avoid eye contact if I could. And Tragic Clown, they're the townies that you just avoid like the plague, which, to be fair, I feel like if you could rip these two in half, she would be down here for some of you. Rosoya household, love them. Love their backstory. Absolutely love, again, that there's so many different stories that you could tell. His mother wants Raj to like settle down and have a family, and Raj isn't really feeling like he wants to do that. Definitely going into motherload for me. I'm sorry, Johnny, but I do feel like they are ahead of you. The Fangs, bisexual panic couple. Do I really have much interest in the Fangs? I fear I don't. I don't know if they're both politicians or like just Victor is a politician, but even for a politician, you never see him out and about. Like, I rarely interact with the Fangs in like any of my gameplay, and I do think that they're iconic, so it is really, really disappointing that they don't ever really make an impact. I'm so sorry. Karaoke Legends, I love them. They're definitely going into Rosebud for me, and they are just going behind the Langra. I'm trying not to let my like townie makeovers, and if I've played with these sims, like actually sway me too much, because that's too much like what I have done and what I have retconned in the game over how they actually appear from the get-go in the Sims 4. Now, I love Diego Lobo. He is a very special sim to me personally. I've played through his story an awful lot. I think he's probably one of the least interesting sims in City Living, and for that reason, he's going in Grim Reaper. I wouldn't avoid him, but he's just not interesting at all. Penny Pizzazz, on the other hand, can you get a more interesting sim? I love her. She is an absolute icon. She's not made it up into the iconicness of Motherload, I don't think. I think it's always harder for single household members to like be up here. She is gonna go just behind the BFFs. I am so sorry to the Jang household. I do really like them as like a household, but I also just like don't see them that much. I feel like they don't really make too much of an effort. Maybe if I focused on like musical sims a little bit more, which I used to do like way back in the day, and I haven't really focused on like musical sims all that much recently. Barco would definitely come into play a little bit more. But again, that's like the retconned like my headcanons for him, you know? So they are going into Crumple Bottom, just behind the Thanks Salim, straight up there. Icon, legend, the moment. He's going above the Calientes. I'm sorry, I am fully basing this off how I have actually interacted with him in my gameplay. He was the first sim that I saw come out of a San Myshuno apartment dressed in a maid costume, and that imagery has actually lived in my brain rent-free ever since. A San Myshuno landlord cannot relate because I have not been charging this man, and he's just like tucked away in the very makeup of my brain cells. I love him. I adore him. I think he's so beautiful. Oh, his story as like a struggling author. Is he even an author? I think he is, but that just might be what I've given to him. I love him. I feel like he is my favorite Sims 4 townie that has ever or will ever exist. Next up, we are moving on to the Get Together townies. Everyone who resides in Windenburg, which there are a fair few of them, which makes sense because, you know, this is all about clubs. This is about your like social life and hanging out with people. So they kind of needed a large pool of townies to pluck from. Both of these, again, are based on my Sims, but they did kind of nerf them. DJ Candy specifically, but even Yuki, I actually didn't even clock that Yuki was like the little vampire my sim. I think I'm gonna have to put them in to Grim Reaper. They're like the top of it because they're my sims and I love them, but I really don't like their Sims 4 versions. The Villarreal household, my babies, I love them. I want to adopt every single one of these kids. Jacques, I am ignoring you. I'm just cropping him out of the photo using my hand. He should not be there. I hate that man. I have such beef with him. I love the kind of makeup between these and like how different they are, and they all have like their own individual like personalities and interests. I love when they make siblings like really, really different from one another. I love when you dive into a house and you can see like how different everyone's interests are, and these lot are definitely up there. So they are going, honestly, top of Rosebud. Sorry to these men. Why would a man be there? The bro household? I have no interest in them. I really, really don't. They're actually going into Tragic Clown. They're the first pairing that are going into Tragic Clown. Oh, that's actually so tragic. Party House, iconic, will forever be iconic. Honestly, I think I have to put them above Johnny Zest I love Party House. I love how Marcus has kind of just adopted all of these young adults and is like, yeah, you can come live in my loft with me. I just love the chaoticness of them. The Free Spirit household, think of them as like a couple, but who very, very much keep it on like the down low, you know? They're just like those two very good friends who live together and, you know, who hang out together all of the time, but who two very distinct, different people. I like Ulrich Faust a little bit more. Micah is just kind of a little bit forgettable in my mind, but I definitely don't think they are going into Rosebud for me. They're going into Crumplebottom, but the top of Crumplebottom. The Munch household, I love, again, all of the boys, but I do not like their mother. I don't know what the parents of Windenburg did to me, but apparently I just really, really don't enjoy their presence. I think it's just because their kids are like so much more interesting, and I feel like they just had to make the parents because they were like, well, we need someone to look after these kids, you know, and then they just kind of half-assed it, and that you can kind of tell from them even wearing like base game clothes a lot of the time. So these three, honestly, I don't really have that much of a stake in the Munch household. Not as much as other households in Windenburg. Same with the Fires household. Moira, again, just fades into the background for me, and these lot I really don't feel like I interact with all that much, but they are going, I'm gonna put them in top of Crumplebottom. Laddie, Daddy. Next to the Goths and the Pancakes, probably one of the most recognizable Sims in The Sims 4, which is wild because there are only two households, two families that are included in The Sims 4 vampires. I know a lot of you might not like him for the fact that he can wake your Sims up at night and come and suck from their necks, but honestly, for a master vampire, I just really don't feel like Vlad does all that much. He never like changes your Sims. I would love it if vampires could just like randomly turn Sims. Like, if there was a very, very low chance of him coming to your house and you actually turning into a vampire, that would be so sick in my opinion, but he just kind of hangs around like a bad smell, and whilst he is iconic like from looks, I really don't think he's the most interesting like master vampire. He just kind of lurks in the background, and for that reason, I'm genuinely going to put him into Crumplebottom, like just above the Fangs. This one's also going to be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like that's always going to be the case with occult packs. I feel like occult packs are the like cult films of The Sims 4. Like, some people absolutely adore them and like dedicate their whole lives to just like the occults of The Sims 4, whereas I don't particularly. I enjoy them when I play them, but I don't play them like an awful lot. And I also don't think that the Vitor household is all that interesting. They're kind of forgettable. I mean, I would talk to them, but they're gonna go just below the Fangs. A vampire sandwich, which actually, if you really think about it, does make sense, because in my mind, the Fangs should be vampires. Moving on to cats and dogs, I absolutely love Brent and Bran Hecking. I love that their name is just based upon their good dogs, Brent. And I do really, really like them as a household. I don't know what either of their careers are, but I do love that they're newlyweds. As Taylor Swift said, they want those 3 dogs that they call their kids. And I think that's just what Brent and Brent Hecking want for their lives. So I am going to put them above the karaoke legends in Rosebud. Katarina Lynx, apart from having a lot of cats, and, you know, dressing up like a cat in some of her outfits, forgettable. She, to me, is in Grim Reaper. They've actually gone up in my estimations recently. I really did not like Supriya Delgato when this pack first came out, and that was just because she was, like, obsessed with my Sims. Like, she would literally, I would see her everywhere, but it's died down a lot recently, thank goodness. And I also really, really love, like, Pierce. I love how much Pierce, like, loves animals, and I can see him being a vet one day. I also feel like there's something really interesting about their house, but I can't off the top of my head remember what it is, but I'm fairly sure there's like a creepy like upper level of their house, which kind of intrigues me about the Delgato household, but realistically I can't put them any higher than Crumplebottom. Vanessa, I'm like 99% sure is an aspiring actor, question mark. Again, because she kind of has that like want for a career, she's quite easy to like jump into and kind of explore the elements of like get famous. I think I used to love her a lot more than I do now. Like she was a really big part when I did like my get famous let's play. I feel like she has the same energy as like Penny Pizzazz, but we're gonna put her there. I absolutely adore the Bailey Moon household. They are icons within their own rights. Another couple that seemingly do have issues. I just think that's such an interesting dynamic. I think I really, really love that dynamic, and like going in to play with those households, kind of like the Pleasants in The Sims 2. They always feel like you can make or break a couple if you actually decide to play with the townies, or even if you like interact with the townies, you know? Like you could realistically steal either of these away from each other and like break up like the most famous household, probably apart from Judith Ward. They are going in to Motherlode. I really, really love them. I'm honestly gonna place them just behind the Calientes. Now, I wasn't gonna include like these other celebrities considering they don't really have descriptions all that much, but then there were some that I like kind of wanted to talk about, and I was like, it would be rude of me to talk about some and then not talk about others. Judith Ward actually does have a house. Obviously, she is a global superstar. She's a level 5 star celebrity. Most of the celebrities annoy me for the fact that they walk around like this with like an air about them and they're arrogant, and my Sims can't really interact with them all that much. I don't think Judith is like the icon that she wants to be in my brain. She does actually just like genuinely annoy me when I see her out and about. So I'm gonna put her into Grim Reaper. Honestly, she's going at the bottom. She's not Tragic Clown to the point where like, you know, like I do not even recognize her and I never want to interact with her, but she's pushing her look. Holly Alto though, I'm so sorry, but Holly Alto, they did you so dirty. I never even interacted with Holly Alto in The Sims 3. I kind of want to make a video where or like a series, that could be so fun, where I go back to like households that exist in The Sims 4 and kind of play them in like every iteration of the game that they are in. If you want to see maybe a cheeky little series on that, let me know in the comments down below, just so we can kind of get to know them better. But they did her so dirty, and she's also just like so uninteresting as a sim or a celebrity. No thank you. Anyone who they took from a previous Sims game and put into The Sims 4 instantly got a downgrade. They got absolutely nuked, not even nerfed. Dustin is apparently a famous businessman, which I kind of wish they had just stuck with The Sims 2 and made him like a famous criminal. Like that in my mind would be so much more funny. Like I'm fairly sure in my townie headcanon I had him become a hacker because I was like, that's just so much more like Dustin. I guess you could say that he turned a new leaf from his like bad boy imagery in The Sims 2, which I don't ever think he was a bad boy. I think he was obviously struggling with like his home life. He was like looking after all of the kids in the household, and so he was just trying to make money in whichever way that he could. But then he got really rich off like the hacking and was like, actually I'm gonna make a career out of this. So I think hacking or criminal is like kind of fun for Dustin, and I really don't think they did him justice. He's actually also going down into Tragic Clown. He's actually worse than Holly Alto, because at least like in The Sims 2 I thoroughly enjoyed Dustin Broke as a character. Sims 4 decimated all of his personality for me. Brittany Cho, I used to really get annoyed by Brittany Cho, and that was because, again, like Judith Ward, she just takes the attention, honestly a little bit more than Judith Ward ever has in my game. Like she's always there like hyping everyone up, like making Sims like cheer for her. But I do love the fact that she is like a stand-up comedian and like a feminist, and she's definitely gone up in my estimations. She's not a global icon, but she's gonna go up there with Penny Pizzazz. Dirk Dreamer, what did they do to this man? What did they do to my sweet little angel baby? Fairly sure in The Sims 2 he either wanted to be in the business career or he wanted to be an athlete, and then in The Sims 4 they were like, yeah, let's just get him into the programming. Like he's meant to be like a game developer, I think, in The Sims 4. And I just think they did him so dirty, but I do still love Dirk Dreamer, so he's actually gonna go up into Rosebud as well. Is he fabulous? If you've never played The Sims Mobile, which I am so sorry to everyone who has like invested money into The Sims Mobile and they are shutting it down, I'm fairly sure, in like January. I hate when they sunset games. Like, I wish that they would just make them available like offline. I think it's ridiculous of them to sunset that game when people have spent like so much money on it. It's why I don't like mobile apps. It's why I wish that if you bought games you actually own them and they weren't just like part of like a launcher. But Is He Fabulous was a sim in Sims Mobile, and I think he's like a fashion like icon stylist. I like him as a character, but I think in The Sims 4 I like barely ever see him, so he's gonna go with like the Fangs for the same reason. Like, I don't see him enough. Kayla Fleming, I'm so sorry, but you are going into Grim Reaper because they did absolutely nothing with you. They were like, we kind of need a famous celebrity who's like into athletics. Like, we need a sporty person. And really all she does is just like, she's a trainer in a gym. That's not on you, girl, though. That is on the Sims team. For Strangerville, we are kicking off with, why can I not think of their name? I know this is Jess, I know this is Dylan, I've forgotten their kid's name. The Sigwards. So many people probably don't even know that they exist. They're just like, who the hell are the Sigwards? Jess is in the army. Dylan is like a stay-at-home dad. I love them. I think they are such a cute little family. I don't think they're doing enough to make it into Motherlode, but I am gonna put them very high up in Rosebud. Again, George Cahill, I love that he crash landed. I love that he's paranoid. He lives underneath his plane crash. How much more iconic can you get? He's actually gonna go up into Motherlode. I just absolutely love George's storyline. These two could have been so interesting and they are so lackluster. They're basically, he's the mayor of Strangerville and that's his wife, but they literally do nothing. Like, I really feel like they could have gone out their way to make him like an evil character. You know, he's like made a deal with the Mother Plan. He's basically selling off his constituents to the Mother Plan. He's like, yeah, take them. And he's like earning lots of money from it, but they are so boring. They are actually going into Tragic Clown because I feel like they had so much potential and then they did nothing with them. I don't know if I can say this, but I feel like they definitely, I guess, wander around and look for mushrooms is all I'll say. They live in a really big house in Strangerville, probably honestly because it was cheap. Maybe one of their parents bought it and then they were like, yeah, we can just like reside there. It's chill, like all good. And then the world just kind of forgot about them, but they're absolutely iconic in my brain. I love eclectic arts. They are also going up into Motherlode. Erwin shouldn't really be here because he is an NPC. He just kind of owns the stall, but I really enjoy interacting with Erwin. He's not really a family that you can like play with though, unless you like actually like give him a home and decide to play with him yourself. And then someone else will start running the store. But I do think he's really interesting. He's going to go up into Rosebud. You might be looking at these Sulani Sims and being like, who the heck are these people? They are just like people who wander around. They don't have, again, like any family description about them. But I did want to include them because there are some interesting facts about them. But first up, we have the Kahananui family. And these two, I wish that they did more. I really wish that these were like the urban developers. I really wish that they had gone for like an evil plotline with these two, but really they're just like Sulani ambassadors and they're like an enterprising couple who have decided to live out their golden years in a dream retreat away from the bustle of Ohanali town. Because they're underdeveloped in my eyes, they're gonna go into Grim Reaper. The Ngata household, I think an interesting backstory, especially with her kind of like being on her travels, you know, traveling around and then falling in love, and I love that for them. But I can't say I've ever had like any interest to like play as them. I think I would have more interest if I actually like played through their backstory of like these two two actually like living apart and then moving in together, and I kind of wish that they had done that. So they are gonna go up into Crumple Bottom. Same with these two. I just feel like I need to play the Sulani households more, but they are also going to go into Crumple Bottom. And then the Kealoha household. Is Makoa doing a lot of the heavy lifting? Yes, absolutely. But I really, really love them, so they are going into Rosebud. Now, those little mermaids all actually have, even though they're not actually in the worlds, they do have a little bit of lore behind all of them. So she is based on a lizard goddess from Hawaiian mythology, then also greatly resembles the character Rin from the show Siren. Now I want to give townie makeovers and actually focus on like all of these Sims, because I did not realize that they like had their own lore. In Hawaiian mythology, the god of wind and the inventor of the sail, reference to the Hawaiian shark deity of the same name who controls fishing quantities. I fear they did them so dirty by like never really talking about that, and now I'm like so interested, and I want to give all of the makeovers and like actually research those like gods and goddesses and deities, double down on that for their lore. This one for sure is a little bit more iconic because I feel like she is quite mean to my Sims a lot of the time, so she's actually going to go into Rosebud. Also really love Nalani, so she's going up into Rosebud. And then these two are gonna go into Crumple Bottom, but again, only because the Sims team did them dirty. I have never been charmed by the Charm family. Let me just start by saying that. I really dislike this Sim. I don't mind these three. However, I do feel like you see them like far too often because of like the magic realm, and they're really like some of the only spellcasters that you can like interact with. They could have made them so much more iconic, and they're just very forgettable. And honestly, her like fuck ass Bob just like pisses me off to no ends. So they're going into Grim Reaper. At least with like the Vitors and stuff, it was like, okay, I remember these Sims, you know, Vladdy Daddy you're never gonna forget, but the spellcasters just kind of fade into the background. It really is the sages who like carry that pack. So I'm so sorry, but both of these are gonna go into Grim Reaper. I do like the acolytes more though, but I just think poor form on the spellcaster. I love Cam Fletcher. I love that if you go to Foxbury, he will basically just like befriend you. He's one of the friendliest Sims in the game. I think he is so cute, and that is the reason he's going straight up into Rosebud. I'm so sorry to the elderberries, but they're also going into Grim Reaper. I don't like actively avoid them, but they're a very boring family. I don't think they're quite as fun as Cam. And again, I kind of wish that they gave you a little bit more of a reason to like interact with these Sims if you were in Brychester. Definitely prefer Julia over Becca, but I'm gonna put them into Crumple Bottom because I don't think they're on the same level as Cam. Yeah, another previous Sims family, an iconic Sims family that got nerfed. I do like the distinction. I'm glad that they kept with the distinction of like Angela being like the preppy, like smart twin who like really tries as like a people pleaser. Actually, depending on who you are, I feel like people pleasing towards like teachers and like authoritative figures, but she can also be like a major bitch to you as well. Whereas Lilith kind of gives off bitch energy, but she's actually like one of the loveliest people once you do get to know her, and she's just like very loyal to the people that she loves. They are gonna go up into Rosebud, but I kind of just wish that there was a little bit more drama surrounding them. I wish if you did have Get Famous, they had like interrelationships with obviously Dustin and Dirk, considering that was like who they were dating. Maybe they weren't even together. Maybe they like went their separate ways, but I imagine like Lilith and Dirk would still be like really good friends and like super supportive of each other, whereas Lilith and Dustin would be like more enemies, and she really, like, maybe he was like begging her to take him back because he's like, I got money now, babe, I can wine and dine you, and she's just like, you're giving me the ick. Underutilized. Obviously, I am going to be biased on this one. This is a household that I had a hand in creating. We brought their story to life on The Sims Sparked, and I absolutely love the Greenbergs. Nox actually wasn't one of our own additions. He was introduced. The Sims team kind of needed to slot him into a household somewhere, and they were like, hey, Mary and Blossom, you know, they adopt people, they bring them into like their community and like help care for them. Are you cool with us adding Nox in as like their adopted son? And we were like, absolutely, like heck yes. And then obviously Simproved built their house, and it's just that in itself, like with the crane, is absolutely incredible and like one of the coolest builds to date in The Sims 4. And I can't put them anywhere but in Motherlode. If they weren't my Sims, I do still feel like they would be like in Rosebud, because I just really like them as a family, but I am gonna put them into Motherlode, but towards the lower end, okay? They're not like my top of top families. The Harris household actually have super fun backstory, especially the grandma. The grandma's a little bit shady in my eyes. She definitely, you know, if you ever go to like the attic of their house, she has like a very interesting workstation, shall we say. But I just wish that it was kind of shown off more. Like, I wish, again, that they kind of had a little bit more like personality to them. I like to think that that's why Jeb kind of hides his identity, because they're just like, no, you know what? I know my grandma's business and everyone keeps asking me about it at school, so I'm just gonna wear this bag and I'm just like never gonna talk to anyone ever again because it's annoying. Also, apparently the grandma, Francine, could be Alice Spencer Kim's mum, which I've never thought about, but that, oh, that's fun. No, I just looked at their house again and they have to go into Motherlode. I'm sorry, but even for the Sims team, like alluding to that idea, even just a family description being like, it seems like Faye is the only one who has a job, but the house is really nicely furnished. Like, what is going on here? That to me is so funny. I genuinely, I think I'm gonna have to put them like all the way up here. Oh my god, we're losing them. They are just like floating heads. I just wish Bess was a little bit more fun. I like that she can call it your Sims and be like, hey, can I have this loan? But I kind of wish there was just some more interesting elements to her as a character, apart from either just like scamming you and the deal falling through, or eventually giving you your money back. And I just feel like they didn't do enough with her if you actually do interact and like befriend her. But she is going into Rosebud because I do like the family. They are gonna go here. I'm sorry, but they are slightly forgettable. I do love them. Obviously, we got the WLWs. I feel actually really bad that I've put so many of the queer couples like slightly lower down, but I just don't think the Tinker household is all that interesting. Moving on to Snowy Escape, some of the only townies that have like fleshed out full relationships that kind of show off their personalities and their lore. This is when things really started to pick up on the lore side of The Sims 4, which I absolutely love, and like the interpersonal relationships between Sims that all live within the same world. I like the backstory of he's moved back here and obviously like brought his family with him because he wanted them to have like a outdoorsy like lifestyle. So they're gonna also go into Rosebud. The Ito household I really love. I love that she was in a past relationship with the guy from the Akiyama household. I'm so sorry, I'm like blanking on his name. Maybe I just love it when there is a little bit of drama between households. I'm starting to figure that out. Like when there's actually like a tense relationship or a strained relationship, I'm like, give me that. So these are going up into Motherlode. I mean, you lot would probably crucify me if I didn't put Kiyoshi up there. Now, I absolutely adore Kaori. but I'm so sorry to her grandparents. They're just a little bland. I wish that they did more. Again, it just feels like the type of household where they're like, oh, we want this teenager, we want her to be in a relationship with Kiyoshi, and then we need to create like some caretaker to look after her. And so they just like added in her grandparents, but they didn't really give the grandparents that much personality. I think Shigeru actually has beef with someone, but I can't remember who it is. I can't remember if it's Naoki, which kind of makes me love him a little bit more. So I'm going to put them into Rosebud. Not as many households as I thought there were in Snowy Escape. Mount Komorebi is quite a big world, but I guess they have a lot of like residential rentals, which means that they don't have Sims like living there. It's always going to be more difficult when you're a single Sim household, but you're new to town and really that is all that there is to you. So you are going to go down into Grim Reaper. My angels, my babies, I absolutely love them. The fact that Ian has always wanted to move back to Henford on Bagley, like after they retired and then settled down with Derek in the countryside, and now they're like pillars of the community. They are going straight up into Motherlode. A recent addition to my I really like this family roster, but we have the Scots. Ooh, this is getting difficult now. Trying to decide like where to scale them. Who is this? Oh, this is the Watson household. Yeah, I'm sorry. Even with the cheating scandal, you know, usually in my Sims 3 days, a cheating scandal definitely would have had you ranking higher, but they are kind of forgettable to me, so I'm gonna put them in Grim Reaper. Not a household that is actually living in the world, but it would be remiss of me to not include the town mayor, hello, the Chopra household. I really, really love these Sims. I love that I can like see everyone that I see like walking in the street and like that I know from like going on holiday to like little tiny villages in the UK. There is a familiar face in all of the Sims who live in Henford on Bagley, and I absolutely love that. And that's what representation can do in a video game, because obviously it's like very heavily like UK countryside based, and that's why I feel everyone should have at least one world in the game that like represents their culture and the people that they see daily, and that is my hope for the Sims. But I absolutely love this household. They are icons in my mind for sure. My wedding stories townies, really not my favorite. We have, I can't even remember this household. I know that I love Hillary and I know that I love Greta, but I really don't know anyone else in this household, so they are gonna go to the bottom of Crumple Bottom. The Markovich household, I've never had any interest in them, so they are going into Grim Reaper. Cam and Dom, way more interesting in the trailer than they are in the pack, which is just so annoying. They had like so much to work with, and then they were just like, yeah, you know, one of them loves painting and the other one, I'm sorry, I can't even remember what Cam does. I like seeing them out and about, but they're very, very forgettable, so they are also going into Crumple Bottom. Faz, though, I absolutely adore Faz. Get to the top of Rosebud, my guy. I love his story. I love that he's a florist. I love that he just has his little van. For the werewolves, we have the collective, which I'm so sorry. I really like all of these Sims, but they are a little bit boring in my opinion. So they are gonna go into Crumple Bottom. But probably like out of all of the households in Crumple Bottom, probably the most interesting. I absolutely love Lou. I love that he is like just getting to grips with being a werewolf and he hasn't like really found himself. Again, very good jumping off point for storytelling. Also used to be in a relationship with Celine. I know technically Celine's lore is that she got like into a fight with Greg, I think, and like she got turned and then she used the cure that she found to like turn herself back into a human because she had no interest in being a wolf. But I like to think that like Lou accidentally like rampaged around her and bit her and turned her into a werewolf, and that's kind of why they broke up. I know I said that I wasn't gonna let my headcanons get in the way and like try and persuade me to put them up further, but I really, really do love Lou, so he is going into Rosebud. I adore Rory as well. I love that Rory stuck to their guns. They were like, I don't like the way that my father is running the collective. I feel like, you don't treat everyone as like individuals, and that's what I want to do in my own pack. Honestly, Rory is going up here into Motherload. Celine, I'm so sorry, but you're in Crumple Bottom, my love. Wolfgang, I'm also sorry, but you're gonna join Celine. You guys can hang out there together. Not gonna lie, Ash is doing an awful lot of heavy lifting in this household, but I am gonna put the Harjo household definitely up into Rosebud. I love interacting with like Ash and Noah when I go to high school. I think they both have really interesting like stories and interests. I'm so disappointed that the pack isn't really that fun for me. I think it's one of the weakest packs that we have in The Sims 4, but the trailer really did do wonders for that, because I feel like it introduced all of the teenagers like so well that I really love their personalities because of the trailer. Again, like this household, I never go out of my way to interact with them, but like Molly is such a fun character to me. I feel like all of these are gonna be in Rosebud. Like I love the families that came with high school years, so I'm also gonna throw you in there as well. The Michelsons, I cannot put them anywhere but Motherload. One of my favorite households within the game. Obviously shipped with growing together, and I have grown to love these Sims so much. I absolutely adore the romance between these two. I love that they have adopted their kids, and they are just like parents who are trying to provide the best life for their children. They are couples goals, whereas you lot, the Robles household, you're going into Grim Reaper. There's just not really anything interesting about you. Whereas I love the Robles Ruano household. I think these two are so fun. Like, I'm sorry, Jay, but you are absolutely right to move out from under your family and like create your own little family, because you are so much better than they could ever be. I absolutely adore them together. I love their story, and I don't think I love them as much as the Michelsons, but they are definitely going up there as like one of my favorite households. The Sullivan household, sorry, but you're going into Crumple Bottom. Kind of forgettable. I've never interacted with this household. Kyle Carlson, Motherload. He's an icon, legend. I love that he invites himself over. I think he's just such a fun character to have. Yes, he might look like Lord Farquaad, but I absolutely love him. So he's going just behind Rory. Horse Ranch, probably some of the families that I have interacted with the least when it comes to townies. Even if I enjoy their character designs, they're just kind of a little meh. I don't try and avoid them though. It's just like I've never really, and I think this comes down to Horse Ranch not really being a pack that I like to play, just because I think it lacks so much. I think the nectar making duo are quite interesting. I do like their story and their dynamic, so they can definitely be in Rosebud. They kind of have the same vibes as Bess. Again, another strange relationship. Maybe I'm just like, I can save them. I can fix them. But Marissa is like the outgoing one who does like a lot of the like charm and the charisma of like winning people over to their business, whereas Danny is like in the background like making the nectar, and they're fully focused on that, and they don't like to be forward facing. I need to kind of interact with them more, so they are also going into Crumple Bottom. And then, I'm so sorry, Sienna and Flapjack, if they had given more in the pack, if they had made your house into like a horse riding school where you could actually like teach kids to ride and stuff, you would be absolutely up there. But the Sims team, they did you dirty. So you are also going into Crumple Bottom. I secretly love the For Rent townies. I didn't think that I would. But again, I feel like with city living, you like interact with your neighbors a lot. And I feel like that is kind of the same in For Rent. So you start to see these a little bit more. I prefer the ones who live in like the apartments, because those are the Sims that you're interacting with a lot in Tomarang. Kaya Putri household icons. I love them so much. The sisterly duo, the fact that she was left with like a house to run and also a teenage sister to look after. Mwah, absolutely beautiful storytelling. They are absolutely up there in Motherload. Sorry to the Lynn Sadja household. I really don't interact with them enough, so therefore they are going into Crumple Bottom, but it's just where do I want to put them in Crumple Bottom? I think there. Absolutely love Auntie. She has to go up here with like the singles. I think she is just so fun. She's like the black sheep of the family. She very much like stands out. She's a bit of a loudmouth and I love that for her. I just haven't interacted with them enough. This is kind of making me think like I need to actually go in, make over these townies, because it's probably the ones that I've spent like the least amount of time like actually thinking about their backstories and like interacting with in the game, that I am ranking that like little bit lower, who are just kind of hanging out in Crumple Bottom because I don't know them enough. Yikes. I also really haven't interacted with the Ciudad Enamorada townies all that much. For a pack that was like very much focused on the tension between like romance, I just really don't feel like they hit the kind of big love stories or the like struggling romances enough for these townies, and they all kind of fell flat in my opinion. I think they are some of the best character design that we have and also like representation. However, their backstories weren't super compelling. The Deer household, obviously, they were like high school loves, and she's very into like her business. Valentina has made it big, whereas Aziz is like struggling to like find who he is in Ciudad Enamorada. In Rosebud, maybe towards the bottom of Rosebud, but I do definitely like these two more than the rest of them. The dynamic daters, I'm sorry, but it just felt like the team were like, we need a household made up of like adult and young adult Sims that people can romance. Like they felt a little bit shoehorned in. And again, I love the Sims, like I love them as individuals, but this just feels like four people who would never really like room together, and they were just like, we need a pool for players to date. And that is kind of a downfall of worlds getting smaller and then kind of like having to put people in living together. And it's not even like it was like Party House where you can kind of see the backstory of like Marcus being that little bit older and like having this big warehouse and then like finding people that he found interesting and like got along with to be like, hey, you're looking for some like cheap rent, like come live with me. Like this just felt very like shoehorned that they were all living together, and for that reason I'm actually gonna put them in Grim Reaper, just because I wish they got a little bit more creative with them. And then this household, I really love the Sims. Again, the mum, she's kind of like the least interesting to me, but I'm also gonna put them in... they can go in Crumple Bottom. They're not as bad as these, so I don't want to put them in the same category. As if I was going to put Olive Spectre anywhere other than in Motherlode, of course. Are you kidding me? Actually, one of the past townies that we've had in any Sims game that they did justice to. And some of you might not agree with that. I know a lot of people don't agree with the choice of like having Nyan be Nyan and not like nervous subject. I definitely don't think it is a downside, so straight up into Motherlode. The ghosts, forgettable. I wouldn't ever, I don't think, ignore them, but they are forgettable. These townies, also forgettable. A lot of forgettable townies when it comes to life and death. They just kind of all live in the shadows of the Spectre household. I would say this household is the most interesting next to the Spectres. Like, it's kind of a Batman thing, I think, that they were going for with him dressed up as the Crow, which the Crow was what killed his father. But I wish they had just like doubled down on that a bit more. I wish that they had made the kids slightly a bit more interesting. So I'm gonna put you into Crumple Bottom. Businesses and hobbies, I absolutely adore these two. I think the dynamic between like a single mum and her daughter, and then also the daughter being like super into astrology and her mum just kind of like encouraging any interest that she does have and like buying her all the stuff that she needs. I just think that is so cute. They are hands down one of my favorites, probably my favorites in businesses and hobbies. Which is wild, because I've seen a lot of people say that these two are like very forgettable. They are going up into Motherlode for me, honestly. Next up, we have the Urbane household. Two of these Sims were based on Sims Herbs, which I do love Cannonball. I also really love the art guy as well. I'm sorry that I can't remember his name. But yeah, I think Business and Hobbies kind of smashed it when it came to taking old townies that we had seen in previous games, but then also like adding a new lease of life. Actually, some of the only townies that feel like they've done them justice. So they are also going up into Rosebud, probably between the Pleasants and Dirk. Sorry to break you up. The grandma in this household, in the Loden household, I think they're called, was also part of the Sims herbs, but I don't really have too much of an interest in the rest of the household, so they are going to go into Crumplebottom. Maybe the first time that I've said this, but even though they are struggling together and they're not really seeing eye to eye in their relationship, I actually don't have much of an interest in them. I know, shocking. They're going into Grim Reaper because they just fall a little flat, I think. These are the townies who actually don't live in the world, like they don't reside there, but they are in the managed worlds. However, they made a change in Businesses and Hobbies, because even if they didn't live in the worlds, they gave them descriptions, kind of like the werewolf ones as well, like Celine and Wolfgang. So for the Hoffman family, generations, Hoffman's candy store was a staple for kids in Nordhaven. So I like that. I like that little bit of backstory, and I am therefore gonna put them into Crumplebottom. I do think they're slightly more entertaining than this household. Then we have the Nias family. Corey goes with the flow, living each day as it comes, serving drinks from behind the counter, and then he's realistically just looking for someone to love. I kind of love Corey, I'm not gonna lie. He kind of has a little special place in my heart, so he's gonna go into Rosebud. And then Zane, it finally happened. Armed with a guitar and rose-tinted optimism, Zane found the courage to leave their family home and pursue their true passion, singing. Which is hilarious, because I feel like Businesses and Hobbies, I guess you could make a music business, to be fair to them, so there is a way to kind of like put that into the game. I'm gonna put Zane into Crumplebottom. Am I enchanted by the Enchanted by Nature townies? Some of them. Not all of them. I really like these two. I like that Iris is canonically gay and in my mind very much has a huge crush on Nadia. And I love that Nadia was like, I need a roomie and I like you, so you can move in. So these two are definitely going up into Rosebud. We do have Iris's parents who aren't that interesting to me. They love technology and that's pretty much all there is to really know about them. So they are going to go into Grim Reaper. Summer Dream household, definitely I don't think as iconic as The Sims 2 Summer Dreams, but I actually will hold my hands up and say I didn't play The Sims 2 Summer Dreams all that often, which is kind of why I want to do those videos going back and playing like past Sims so that I can like kind of get to know them and then kind of see how the Sims 4 versions compare. But I do still like them as a household. I think it's very, very interesting that they are Titania and Oberon. Obviously, Midsummer Night's Dream influence. They're gonna go just after the Spencer Kim Lewis. I love Glem Gnome. In my mind, he was a gnome and then magically got turned into a human. I just love that he dresses as a gnome. I think it's so, so cute and it's literally his name. So he is also going up into Rosebud. I really, really like his backstory. I'm so sorry to these two, but next to the Lapido household, like Iris's parents, probably the least interesting when it comes to Enchanted by Nature. They kind of just like added them, I think, to have another fairy and then also someone to work behind the stall into Crumplebottom. And finally, Adventure Awaits. So we have 3 different households. We've obviously got Nigel and his 2 girls and his wife. I'm so sorry, but I have not played this pack enough to have learnt people's names. I know Nige, obviously, because of the trailer. And I do like this household. Again, they do have separate rooms, which you all know at this point I am interested in. But it just kind of felt maybe a little bit with this household. They were trying to show off like everything that you could do in the pack, and they don't really stand out to me. But I'm gonna put them into Rosebud. I just don't think I've spent enough time with them, and I think if I do spend time with them, I'll actually really start to enjoy them as a household. Perry and his grandma, she was really just made to be the retreat leader. I like Perry's story, the fact that he's like quite quiet, and so she bought him like an imaginary friend to kind of bring him out of his shell. But I haven't spent enough time with them to find them interesting, so they're gonna go into Grim Reaper for now. And then finally, we have the return of, why can I not remember Dustin's dad's name? Skip Broke, who skipped town apparently and left Brandy to deal with 3 children by herself, whilst he was just living it up in Love Highland Retreat trying to find a new love. These again just kind of feel like shoehorned characters that they kind of put together to make the most of the pack, and for that reason they are going into Grim Reaper. And there we have it. I've spoken for almost 2 hours, so God help me editing this video. Let's see how short I can actually make it. There's my full-on in-depth ranking of every single townie family in The Sims 4. I would love to know your opinions about this. I think everyone's gonna have different opinions depending on how frequently you interact with these Sims, if they annoy you or not in your game, because that's very personal, you know? It tends to be the first few Sims that you interact with, like, basically imprint on you. Call me Jacob Black, because I am gonna be popping around to your house at any given opportunity. And everyone has a different like perspective on Sims because of like how they interact with your Sims. But thank you all so much for tuning in. If you didn't know a lot about these townies, I hope that this video was a little bit educational. Sorry if I got any of their lore mixed up with my own headcanons, but that's the fun of the Sims 4 townies, you know? You can completely ignore them if you like don't care for them, or if you're like me and you care about them too much, you can very much tie them into your gameplay, or even go into their homes and like start playing as them and like live out their lives, which is something I definitely need to do. Once I've got all of their townie makeovers done, I need to actually go in and like play all of these Sims, because I have a lot of love for them, if you couldn't tell by how much I've just spoken about them. But thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and I will speak to you all in my next one. Bye now.